obviously you hire someone like us because we're going to dig to the details and manage the process, right? Like that's the benefit of having someone else do it, is there's so much complication and coordination involved, and we've built processes around that complication and coordination which make it easier. And also we enjoy it, right? Like a homeowner may not love the fact that they have to coordinate and deal with all that, whereas like when we do it, we're like, all right, this is gonna be awesome, let's get this guy, let's call this guy, let's pull this in, make sure these materials are gonna be used. Like it's all high-end stuff. That's what we live for. I mean, that's the whole reason that any client we work for, we give them the buying journey, right, and the construction journey. It's just, it helps them see a roadmap of where they're headed. Like that's the experience. Like a lot of people they work with maybe in the past have never said like, hey, here's what you can expect along the way, or here's how we operate. Like usually it's like, all right, I think I understood what you wanted me to do, and what's next? Oh, well, there's no expectations set. And I feel like a lot of homeowners appreciate expectations, especially when you're working in very complicated projects. The first piece of that would be, when you look at it, you said, hey, when they walk in the door, it's when we walk in the door, because the first time they see us is when we walk in the door to their space. And so no matter where it is, I don't care what kind of home it is. It can be the biggest, most gorgeous home, or it can be a small rinky-dink home. It doesn't matter. I treat every client the same, right? So it's like when I walk in, I'm looking at them to say, what do you want? What do you need? Two very important questions. Sometimes those align with what they can afford, sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, figuring out what they want and what they need is number one, because ultimately everyone's got their wish list of like dream items, and everyone's got their wish list of like, I gotta get these things done. And so assessing that up front is important. This particular client had a very substantial list of things they wanted and needed in terms of the project. And so it took a long time to walk through the project, let's put it that way, because as you're doing it, you're also assessing and you're coming up with additional maybe concepts that might work better. It's a long consultation. So initial consultation is a super important piece of this, where if you're walking through on an initial consultation and they don't feel confident with the plans you're coming up with or saying, or if you're not meeting their needs, and you're never going to get the project, right? So I don't want to say we won the project on the initial consultation, but it went really well. And then from there, they're trusting you to go put a plan together and come back, right? And so that's, buying journey point one is initial consultation. Buying journey point two is initial design and budget conversation. So now the second time you see them is when they come into the office and they're in our space, and now we're showing them what we can do. And then it just goes from, hey, they came out here and showed us now, or we showed them what we had, now we're going to show them what we have. And hopefully they align with everything they talked about and meet the needs. So in terms of the process, I mean, a huge project like that, where even on the beginning, you're not sure if they want to do the whole project, right? Like it's like, hey, let's budget out each area, figure out, where the budget is for the project in general, and allow them to kind of pick like, hey, I really value this area and this area, maybe we'll hold off on this area. In this case, they took all areas, which is not always the case, right? Like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different project areas that we estimated.
That's not something that do you typically do that?
Usually it's more kind of the full project scope, and like when it's this complicated and you're not 100% sure how they want to manage it moving forward, it's like, all right, well, let's just break this out into areas so you can make a decision. Because ultimately, if they were like, hey, I really want to focus on this massive kitchen remodel, I still want to do the sunroom in my master bedroom area, but I'm gonna scrap the laundry room and the mud room and the office and the front porch and the deck. There's a lot of areas of the house on this thing where they could have gone with a la carte of choices, and in this case, again, they elected to do them all, which is incredible, and I'm excited to do it, because not often do you get every piece of a project like that. It's hard to, what's the word I'm looking for, throw the budget out for that. Like this is a substantial project for the size of home and also the level of home. I mean, it's a really, really high-end style of a home too.
is this cost plus?
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe touch on that or whatever?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I feel like that's another, area of a new area that we have of building trust with people.
I just had this conversation with a homeowner yesterday, so I know exactly what I want to say.
Cool.
And the reason I enjoy talking about it is because it helps explain where we've been and where we're at now. Even with a homeowner, it's good to be transparent on all levels, right? To say, hey, we used to just present one price and say, here's your price. Well, the problem with doing that is they don't understand where all the costs are coming from. When they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a project, they want to say, where's my money going? Right? I want to make sure that if I'm giving you this money, that half of it isn't going in your pocket. I mean, that's the level of transparency they need. Right. And I understand that and I can relate. I'm not spending the kind of money on a project that they're spending. So I want to be as transparent as I can with them to say, hey, your dollars are going to things important to your project, not just to my pocket, which, sometimes it can feel that way when you just give one big number, right, where it just feels hidden and they're like, well, where's all the money going? Mm-hmm. And so with the cost plus approach, it essentially breaks down each item I have bid in the project, very transparently listed on there to say, hey, here is my cost for your permit. Here is my cost for project management. The time it takes for us to manage it on this board and order your materials and call our subs and make sure it's on time and all of that, right? And making sure the project goes smoothly. And then it talks about each level of demo we're going to do. It says, hey, in this project, I've got 8 areas of demo that I need to explain to you and cost out for you and the time I think it will take to do. And ultimately that's my guys doing the demo and they're going to be bid out at X dollars an hour in order to attain that. Right. And so if I'm scheduling their hours to say like, hey, I think it'll take this amount of hours for these guys to be there to do it. If I'm under that, you're going to get charged for under that. If I'm over that, you're going to get charged for over that. It's a shared risk approach to say, here's the project. You're seeing all your costs. I'm open as I can be with you to make sure that it gets done the way you want it done. And so that's like, item number 2 would be demo. And let's say you have rough framing, right? So it's like, hey, I've got it broken down to the number of studs. I've got it broken down to, how many LVLs I need to build new headers, how many trusses I need to put the sunroom top on, each piece. Like someone's looking at it saying they have built out every component. Right. And then on top of that, each component has a labor item attached to say, this is what it costs to do that labor item. And so the confusion isn't there, the transparency is. And so if they sit there and they may look at it and get overwhelmed, and that's okay. Because it's what we put together to be very detailed. Right. So when they look at it and say, holy cow, there's a million things on here, like I'm not even going to sift through it. Or maybe they are going to sift through it because they're very detailed and they want to know what's going on. Right. And most people probably do that. But it could be overwhelming to someone who doesn't know construction. Like, I don't know what half of these things are. Right. And so they're just going to ask questions and be like, hey, is this accurate? Yes, it is. Right. And so as the project's going, it's saying like, hey, I'm using these material items, and if I don't need these items, then I'm not charging you for them. If I am using these items or more, I'm charging you for them. And so it's just a very good way to make sure that we're covered in all of our costs and they're getting everything they need. And so what I've been telling people lately is that on your project, you can dream big or you can dream small, it doesn't matter, right? You dictate the scope and the costs. I dictate the terms. So I'm just giving you all of these numbers, and that is the actual numbers. And then I'm just getting my fee on top of all that, and you're going to see my fee. So I'm going to build this thing out for you to sift through all the hard costs of your project. If you like it or don't like it, at the end of the day, I got to have a fee on top of that too, because I have to run this business. Right. And so it's transparent in a way that they see all their individual broken down costs. They see how much I'm making on the job, and it's very transparent along the way, and they can trust us to get it done. It's been a night and day difference for our company in terms of the trust that you gain in a large project, because it's hard to do. Because everyone wants to get, the classic thing I hear is, oh, I'm getting other bids, or it's a constant comparison game for us, right? And so how can we set ourselves apart is I'm going to be as open as I can with you. And most people, 99% of the people appreciate that. And so breaking it down to a level, if I just tell someone the cost, they're gonna be like, oh, that seems high. If I show them the cost, they're gonna be like, oh, that seems legit. Now I show them $250, $250,000, and they're like, I see every line item, it all compiles, like, all right, I trust you. I trust that this is an accurate price. And whether or not they go forward or not, at least they know we did them a solid to put it all together the right way.
Right.
And ultimately, it's not always going to work out, and the budget might be too high, and they may have to wait and come back to us, or maybe they're going to call someone else who can do it cheaper. You know, it's hard to say, but at the end of the day, we're doing our due diligence to make sure we're putting the right plan together for the people that want it. And push comes to shove, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we've had times where, you know, you show up and you're looking at maybe 2 large projects, and someone really wants to stay in this home forever, and they're like, hey, I really want to spend X. Well, up front, I'm trying to give them a heads up, like, hey, I think based on both of these projects, you're probably going to be at Y. And so you're either going to do one and wait for the other, or partial on each, or figure out what the hybrid of what you want and need are to get that done with your budget. And I think that's the assessment piece on the front end that really helps homeowners understand what they're going to be getting into too. And we've had times where, hey, focus on this one, quote this one, or hey, quote both, and we'll decide, and maybe we can make it both work. And I've had it go both ways in that scenario many times. So